Okay. Alrighty. So I'm sorry, just like restart it. I Let me circle back around to that. Let me circle back around to that. All right. I'm trying to figure out if I did a video of one of the ways, well, a couple of the ways that abusers will get victims to not hold them accountable or to not enact consequences. And so from the victim side, the abuser or from the victim side, the victim side is, fuck around, find out. FAFO. Actions have consequences. And from the like abuser side and from the enabler side, they say stuff like you're holding a grudge or you're bitter. It as a way to shame you, morally shame you out of the consequences because oh, they're not valid and you're a bad person if you do that. And that's how you can look at a situation from your own perspective and think, okay, well, these are consequences for you. And from their perspective, they don't see it that way. A really good example geopolitically is okay, so Trump talks about having Greenland, buying Greenland, low key, maybe taking Greenland over. And so Denmark and the rest of NATO are like, bro, what? Absolutely not. And they start walking back some of the things we do, they do as allies with us. So now, flash forward to now, and Trump is doing like the Strait of Hormuz stuff, and he comes out and he acts as if he's making this power statement. The NATO and the European nations, they're our allies, and they should help us with the Strait of Hormuz. And NATO and the rest of those allies who have not been letting US ships and things dock at their ports because of the Greenland situation. We're basically looking at Trump like, did you not think this would happen? You can't threaten to take over one of our member nations, property, land, and then think we're gonna have your back. Like, come on now. And so he had his little tempy tantrum, and he talked about how uh, they were weak, and he had all sorts of like words. But so from an objective victim perspective, you can look at it and see very clearly, like, he fucked around, he found out. But from his perspective, he is supposed to be able to do whatever he wants to with no consequences, and he will be manipulative in whatever way that will uh, make people look bad or shame them or whatever to get what he wants. And that's what abusers do to the victim. That's what enablers do to the victim. So you finally have the ability to have power and enact consequences. And they're going to Jedi mind trick you into not doing that. And one of the primary ways is that they will tell you that you are bitter. They will tell you that you are holding a grudge. They will act as if you are unhealthy or unstable. And if you look at the situation objectively, you're giving consequences or they're experiencing the natural consequences of their behavior. Like, hey, you treat me badly. Of course, I don't want to hang out with you and spend time with you and come visit for holidays or be your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, husband, wife, whomever. Um, you know, that is a natural consequence. They're going to act like there's something wrong with you. And so it's extremely manipulative. I can't remember if I've done a video on it, but I wanted to mention it for the live because I think so many victims of abuse, especially if you're dealing with an estranged parent dynamic. So they're going to say stuff like, well, that was so long ago. And in fact, that happened with my mom. Oh, hey girl, it's good to see you. I did look into, I looked into that, Hawaii case and I have thoughts. I didn't have enough time to have official correct thoughts, but there were a lot of people. Yeah, it's almost over spring break. I think when does my son go back? I feel like it's next week or something like that. So, no worries, no worries. We can always pop in later. Um, But yeah, so I looked into that Hawaii case and I was watching the testimony of the guy. And first of all, you don't get to murder somebody if you think they're cheating on you. That is not a thing that is appropriate that anybody gets to do. And so the fact that that thought process was even occurring and he's allegedly like an educated person who's an anesthesiologist, yeah, you don't get to do that. And the other thing, I have a very hot spicy take uh actually about cheating, which is that if you are with an abuser and they are not letting you leave, Um, I don't know that I consider that actually cheating. Cheating is you're able to make a decision to betray your partner, but if they're not making that a consensual situation, then finding an outlet that's outside of the relationship dynamic, that's a way a lot of victims of abuse get out of their relationship dynamics. Um, and again, I don't know that I think that the elements of cheating. Oh, self-defense. I saw her okay. Good luck with that, buddy. It was an emotional affair she discussed with, in attempts to save their marriage. Yeah, like, you don't get to murder people. You don't that's emotional regulation. You have feelings, you go, "Oh, there's no trust in this marriage, blah, blah, blah." This is why no-fault divorces became a thing. The fact that this guy was going and, he's, like, screenshotting things extensively, trying to get, like, all this evidence. And most states are no fault divorce states. There's no other than for your own knowledge, which he had already established, I guess, there's nothing that you can do with this. You can't take it into court and say, "Ah, I deserve alimony," or "I shouldn't have to pay this person any money." That's not how that works. Again, broadly speaking, in the United States. So there's, I know that there are some people that wanna roll back no fault divorces, but the murders go up when you do that. Um, the murders go up when you do that, and a lot of men get poisoned when you can't just easily get divorced. And also, just divorce her. You don't trust her, you don't wanna be in a relationship anymore. He saw the flirty texts. The wife lives and his son from a previous marriage testified. Wow. Wow. What did the son say? I did see the photos of her head, the blood at when she came down the mountain, like, you don't get to murder people just because 'cause you've got feelings, like, that's not a thing. Yeah, so I'm not, like, too familiar of that case. What I will say, though, is I did see a lot of comments that were talking about how he thought he was so smart, and 100% I have seen that before directly. People think that they are so smart, and so they don't listen to the attorneys. And ethically, your job is to represent your client. Your job is not to do things at your client. So you can't make them take a plea deal. You can't make them take a settlement. Um, you can't make them not take the stand. They have a right to take the stand in their own defense, even if it's not in their best interests. Let's see, the dad called him from the scene, suicidal, oh, saying he tried to kill the wife and wouldn't be coming home. Okay, see, I feel like it would be so much better if he had just be honest. Just be honest. I was so angry. I wanted to kill her. Not that that's okay. I didn't obviously kill her. Yeah, you're gonna have jail time, but now we're doing this song and dance where you're pretending that you're innocent, and it makes you look calculating, and you lose. Not that anyone should have empathy for your situation, but I think there's a level of understanding when you see your partner doing stuff that you okay, we understand these feelings even if we don't act on them. Let's see, the wife's testimony was phenomenal. The 2 of them were so strong, the wife and her stepson. That's crazy, his own son. Okay. Side note, doctors, like, the way I caution about an attorney or being with a therapist or counselor, I would also caution about doctors. They often think that they're the smartest person in the room. That means they think that they're better than you usually, and there's often a lot of behind the scenes talk between doctors that is terrible. There's a guy in, the Mayo Clinic who may or may not be getting expelled because of some TikToks he did, and there's so many people that are like, "Oh, I work in the medical field, and the, doctors 100% are like this. That's why he didn't think it was a problem because this is normalized, the way that he's talking about patients." So, I mean, I guess being an anesthesiologist is not the same as being like a doctor, or that has to be a PhD. You're making people unconscious. Anyway, but yeah, so all of the signs of someone being, "I think I'm the smartest. I know better than everybody. No one can tell me what to do." If he was controlling in the marriage, I would not be surprised. Oh, nope, that's not good. Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy. Nope, that is not a good situation. Hope the kids aren't around that right now because that's more, they don't necessarily need to know that, if that makes sense. I would just I would be careful. Like with my son and his father, the way I phrased it was like, "Dad's not making his best choices right now. So we're gonna help him by having boundaries." And I tried to approach it in not a way that would make him feel badly about his dad, even though dad was doing some not okay things. Whenever you have kids involved, and again, this is probably the guardian ad litem in me. Whenever you have kids involved, you just, yeah, you gotta reel it back, even though it's even though it hurts. But like I said, this guy's on a mountain and he's feeling those feelings. You don't get to murder somebody. Yeah, that's tough. Uh, all right. So, yeah, I haven't really looked at more into the Hawaii thing. I kind of thought about talking about the Alpine divorce situation. And I really, you know what? Maybe I will. Okay. So, the apparently there's a trend of, I hate to say it like this, but like guys that will take women up on a mountain and then essentially abandon them. Plausible deniability, we hope they don't come back, like, instead of having a conversation of like, "Hey, I don't wanna be in a relationship with you." And it's oh, yeah. I can yeah. So oh, I totally forgot what I was saying. That's alright. No worries, no worries. Okay. So oh, here's what I wanna talk about. Okay, the why would I do that? Whenever you're talking to somebody, I see this in depositions all the time. What for paralegal purposes, but also I've seen it in like real life. Whenever you are talking to somebody and you've discovered they've done something they shouldn't have done, but you're essentially fact finding, or you want to see what they'll say, or you're like pretty sure, but you're not 100% sure, or maybe you don't have evidence. So you come and talk to them about it. And their response is, "Why would I do that?" That person is guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty all day. Because instead of saying no, they're saying, "Well, you give me a reason why I would do that, and then I'll argue with you about that reason." I've never seen this be wrong. I mean, theoretically, of course, at some point it has to be incorrect. But if you come to somebody and you're like, "Okay, so it looks like you're cheating on me," and they go, "Why would I do that?" Guilty. Or, oh, let's see, they're doing something wrong with money. That's not okay. And you go, like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Why would I do that?" Yeah, that is a guilty person. So, it's of caveats, of course. But yeah, I figured that one out early on. I've seen even kids do that where you go, like, "What were you thinking?" And they're like, "I don't why would I do that?" It's because they want to get you to give them what would essentially be a reason they could argue with. All right. Hold up. Have I talked about Oh, you know what somebody said? Girl, maybe it was you. Somebody was talking about the dignity line, and I meant to look that up. Wait a minute. Let me move this. It was in another video, dignity line. And what they said was it was a woman who realized, I think, no, I'm gonna have to track down later. It looked really good. But today is not that day. The dignity, well, no. All right. Pay attention to if they value you. Oh, let's talk about how being needed is not love. Okay. No, actually, I wanna talk about smart people who think they're smart. Okay, so whenever we at the law firm, you have somebody come in who they are coming in with pride. They are coming in thinking they're the smartest person in the room. They are like the worst people to work with. They will argue with you. It is not worth the money. And in fact, at the end, so the way it works out, and I learned a lot about human nature from this job. The way it works out is if you get a good outcome from this person, well, of course, because they had a good case. And if of course you got a good outcome. But if you get a bad outcome, then it's your fault, and so it's kind of the way abusers they do the same thing. Like anything good they did, anything bad you did. Um, and so they don't have an understanding that there are variables and you can't control like a judge and a jury and the trial process and all of that. Um, so they don't respect the work that we were doing. They don't respect the legal work. And therefore, they don't think you're entitled to the money that you get through that process. Same thing with abusers. Abusers, they don't respect you, they don't respect what you're doing, and so anything benefit that you get in the relationship that they even give you of their own volition, they don't think you deserve it, and they're even mad at you about it or resent you for it. Um, yeah, that is one reason why if you're in a relationship with somebody, there should be some parity of money. One person should not be making so much more money than the other person. Because if you're the person making more money, they may resent you for making more money and do things to sabotage you like covertly that you don't even know about. And if you're the one making less money, they'll act like you are lesser in status and that you are not entitled to things because you make less money and you don't work as hard when you genuinely may be working even harder. It's just that the job isn't compensated, the same way theirs is. So any victim of abuse who's been working in the service industry is like really familiar, in my opinion, with this. Um, but yeah, anybody who thinks they are the smartest person in the room, run, run so hard. They make everything worse. They do not make things better. And if they were really smart, they would want to work with people on meet them where they're at. Everybody can contribute something. But yeah, if they don't respect the work that you do, it doesn't matter how good you are at it. They're not, you know, they don't think it's a good outcome in terms of something that you should be given credit for. And I just like this asymmetry in general, where abusers they socialize they socialize all of the mistakes they made. It's not their mistake, it's our mistake or it's your mistake. And they capitalize all the benefits. Well, I did this. It's mine. It's not a we thing. I it took me so long to realize that paying attention to how people think and paying attention to whether or not someone's like a person who respects other people or who is a highly critical person that they will turn like that eye of Sauron on you. Let's see, I'm youngest in my family of origin, so even as a grown woman, I act as if on assumption that everybody's smarter or more experienced or knows things I don't. No, okay, that's the worst. That's the worst. You've been socialized in the opposite way. Like you don't want to think you don't know anything either. You have lots of competencies. Yeah, girl. Yeah. Yeah, that's so common. I'm sorry. Um And the thing is they won't see that deference as being like a characteristic of yours. They'll think it is a marker of you being worthless and what you're doing is worthless. I actually had a conversation with my son that I had a flashback to because I'd had it with my dad. So my dad raised me to think that women were stupid. And then he had a conversation with me about my mom because I think I'd said something about my mom. And he's like, "Hey, don't make the mistake of thinking your mom's not smart. She's brilliant." And I was like, "Oh, okay, my bad." So I was talking to my son and I think he was drifting into a STEM is the only smart thing kind of territory. And I'm not, I'm not amazing at STEM. That's not my area of knowledge or information. And so anyway, he made a comment. I was like, "Let me stop right there. Do you think I'm dumb? Because I'm actually very smart." I have on the internet, I get to be a blowhard because it's a yeah, no, that's the thing. So many I don't want to drift into like gender territory, but this is very common for women. Yeah. So I had that discussion with my son. I was like, "First of all, let me talk to you about the types of intellect. You're gonna sit here for my TED Talk. And then secondly, we're gonna talk about, the what exactly intelligence is. And then thirdly, we're gonna talk about women who were smart in history and didn't get credit for it." Because he had thought that men invented everything. I was like, "We're gonna um, yeah, so no, I am. I am smart. I will say though, the ADHD thank you. The ADHD sometimes makes it more difficult for me to communicate, like, verbally. And also, if you frame knowledge as being STEM or mathematically based, then you're not gonna look at me and go, she's so smart." So I had to teach my son how to think about that, and I'm shocked he thought that because I couldn't believe it. I'm like, "Where did you get this from?" It was not me. Yeah, so he's the original audience for the Hayden TED Talks. Anyway. Yeah, so I think it's really common for victims of abuse, particularly women, to underthink themselves, and then abusers like overthink themselves, and so you get this dichotomy where an abuser and a victim get together, and the abuser thinks they know more than they do, and they're smarter than they are, and they expect everyone to be deferential, and then the victim thinks, well, that they are less than they are, and that they're not that smart, and they don't have much to contribute or much value. Yeah, that sounds right. Just the thing I love about having ADHD is that you're more oriented on patterns than you are details, so you can really, think in a different way, and I like that. But it does mean I can lose specificity if I don't have the tippy-tappy, at hand. So, I just think it's important to respect all of the ways that people think. I think you can learn a lot, you can cross apply, and so if everyone thinks the same way, A, it's boring, and B, you don't get like the innovations. So I like that approach. That sounds like good job, professor. Let's see. There was something I wanted to Oh yeah, no, I think I was at 141. Um See, the detail focused, that's where the notes come in. That's where the notes come in. And so I had been doing the subreddit for 14 years. I have like notes for forever. And so yeah, the notes really help you kind of like organize information and figure it out. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, what I tell my son is basically like it doesn't matter until you see what someone does with it. Um, but yeah, my dad, my family, they're all very smart, and the my dad certainly thought he was smarter than everybody. But my mom, she's got like 2 PhD or a master and 2 PhDs or like 2 PhDs or something. She's got like a bunch of degrees. So even though I'm no contact with her because she's not a safe person, that doesn't mean I don't immensely respect her. And she also was like the mayor of a small town in Texas. So I mean, that's an accomplishment. Even if it's a small town, that's still you're a mayor. That's cool. So from a distance, I respect and admire her. even though I know that she's not a safe person and I don't want her around my child, and that's okay. So it's I find sometimes it's hard for people to walk that line where they wanna, like, hate the abuser, and because of the stuff she went through, I literally I can't I'm not in a position to do that, but I know that hating the abuser sometimes can help victims get that emotional distance so they can get themselves to safety. But I personally just I can't bring myself to do it, so, um, yeah. Alrighty, let's see. Man, there's like 5 people here. Hey, y'all. That's cool. Um, let's see. Did everybody watch okay. Okay, this is good. I wrote Hunter versus Trap. All right. Talking about abusers and like their types of abusing. So many of the resources, I feel like, talk about abusers as if they're hunters, as if they're active predators. But sometimes I think, oh yeah. I mean, for sure. Yep. So sometimes I think though, we forget the kind of the abuser that like sets up traps for the victims. And so we conceptualize abusers as like going out, tracking down vulnerable people. When in general, or not in general, but there's definitely a type of abuser who is lying in wait to see who comes into like a spider. Um, and so I think that type of abuser is gonna be a lot harder kind of to clock. So we're all learning these mechanisms to like clock the active abusers. But the ones that lie in wait, yeah, that's definitely a harder abuser to kind of see coming. Because they just seem like they're over here doing their thing, and it's not until you're in their sphere of influence and control that they pounce. So, I think that's one way abuse can really take a victim by surprise. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, whoops, my bad, I hit the mic. Oh, I wanted to talk about while you were sleeping. Okay. Okay, remember I did a video back when talking about how sometimes I think actors make a villain seem like their internal goodness or charisma makes the villain seem like a sympathetic character. And I recently, sometimes you go back to these older movies and it's like so I had circled back around to While You Were Sleeping, and I was watching it. So it's the Sandra Bullock one where um she imagines that she's married to this guy that she's into. Yeah. She imagines she's married to this guy that she's into, and then something happens and she wants to see him at the hospital and there's some mix up and she ends up pretending to be his fiance, but then ends up falling for like the brother. And it's this whole thing that started because she was creepy and stalkery. So if that were gender flipped, I feel like we would very clearly see what a problem this was, regardless of good intentions. That's just, it's not safe behavior. We should not be doing that. But Sandra Bullock, she's got so much charisma. She seems like a nice person. Although at this point with Hollywood, who knows? I don't, I'm making no claims on her behalf, but um, you know, she made what was intrinsically like a kind of an incel character. She made that seem a lot better than it intrinsically is. And another one I want to say is Overboard. So, okay, along the pattern of you don't get to just be abusive because someone is like shitty in some way. In Overboard, the guy basically takes this lady home who has no idea who she is and treats her like a slave essentially because he's mad he didn't pay her, which that's what small claims court is for. Okay. So that's not, none of this is reasonable. But because Kurt Russell is such like, he seems like such a nice guy and he's got a lot of charisma and they set up the story that you identify with him, But I feel like looking from the eyes of 2026, it's like, this this is a villain. That's some villain shit. And you are a terrible parent too on top of that. And I think the movie explained it away as like, "Oh, he's just a single dad, and he's, you know, it's not his fault." And there are 100% single parents out there with multiple kids who are not terrible parents. I'm not saying it's easy, but, they're doing a good job and the kids are not feral, and also they're not, basically kidnapping vulnerable people from the mental hospital and bringing them home to do labor. So the happy ending where she's like, "Oh, I have money," and then yeah. So some of the movies don't hit. They don't hit like they did. And I don't know how many of you are, older, but there are moments when I look back on movies and media and I think, "Man, how did we not realize how bad this was?" And also, it's really, heartwarming to me to realize, "Oh, I didn't like Caddyshack. I didn't like these movies." I never was into Chevy Chase movies, like the National Lampoon ones either. Um, and I'm like, "Go me." Maybe I was, even if I didn't consciously recognize these were all terrible, maybe on a subconscious level, my brain was like, no." I just think so many of the movies from the past were so, so bad. Even I love The Fifth Element, but, like, you don't fall in love with some random person who falls into your cab and then suddenly, like, there's, like, a couple of days frenzy of doing stuff, and now you're in like, it's not real, you don't know anything about her, it's just that she looked pretty, and he's focused on her appearance, like, none of it. I love the movie, but certain aspects of it just don't hit quite like they used to. And when you realize it's a wish fulfillment for Luc Besson, who has I think he's got some problematic dating history. It's like, yeah, okay, this tracks, this tracks. Um, just on a side note, yeah, yeah, yeah. So speaking of wait, I don't remember what was wrong with Speed? Like, in terms of the movie. So I know Luc Besson, he likes to date younger. Oh, you know what? Honestly, while we're at it, y'all, I am so tired. I am so tired of suddenly discovering that these people from history, that we have elevated to whatever status, they turn out to be garbage people. So, okay, the Cesar Chavez, that's the most recent one. But when I found out what Gandhi was doing with his like younger, I think it's younger cousins to test his lust, whatever, and, you're just like, "What?" And then, Martin Luther King also, that's he apparently was a witness to, a friend of his raping some woman, like, um oh, yes. Yes. His purity. Oh my gosh. Um yeah, so Isaac Asimov, I kinda, like, really love science fiction and fantasy, so I've always really liked Isaac Asimov books, except there were sometimes he'd say something in a book, and I'd be like, I don't know about this because it was kinda sexist, and oh, yeah, that's yep, you just okay, yeah, and it happens, and those relationships don't usually last, but so anyway, Isaac Asimov, he turned out to be like he went from being a nerd and no women being interested into him and then become popular. So he'd like show up to conferences and things. And so he just was grabby and he would like basically physically assault women on the elevator. And they told the people in charge, and they were like, "Yeah, but it's Isaac Asimov, so we can't do anything about it." And I want to say it was the '60s, so they were just like, "That's how he is." um, yeah, good. Oh no, I didn't know about that. Schoolgirls, Jesus. Then there's also a philosopher. Okay, this one hurt. This one hurt so much. There was a philosopher who was dating Simone de Beauvoir. De Beauvoir. I don't know how to say the name. I'm sorry. Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir. Anyway, so apparently she would feed her students to this dude. And what's his name? It's not Foucault. Is it Foucault? So people quote these people all the time, and you think, oh, they're a bastion of like philosophy. And it turns out they're garbage. And I did not realize how many people in the 70s were straight up pedophiles. I'm about to sound really I'm about to sound really naive, but I thought pedophilia was a thing of the past. I thought taking advantage of people was a thing of the past. I guess I kind of thought, now that we had porn, that we weren't having who are those guys with the trench coats? They'd come out that like flashers, that we had seen like a reduction in the ways that people were being victimized just like by a stranger. And it turned out that I was very, very wrong. Okay, so is it Foucault? He had a great what's this dude's name? It was the guy who was with Simone de Beauvoir. De Beauvoir. I should learn French. No, I shouldn't. I don't want to do that. Okay. I'm going to find it. Existential philosopher with who's the dude? It was like a husband. This is terrible. I used to remember his name. It starts with an F. But anyway, they took like young, vulnerable like students of hers, and yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that, but Sarge, Jean Paul Sarge, yes, yes, yeah. Scanterhand, you are. Thank you so much. Yes, yep. So Sartre is the one we all quote because he's got that quote that talks about never think that they don't know what they're doing, and that you know their that their violence isn't intended, but it is obviously much more elegantly than that. And it's about Jews in the Holocaust and then like anti-Semites. And so we all end up like quoting that because it's such a great explanation for how a lot of abusers are. And then I go back and I find out that he's essentially abusive, and so is she. And she's sort of a bastion of you know, philosophy. So I am deeply tired of so many of these famous people that we revere and they turn out to be garbage and for some reason interested in children. I don't get it. I don't get it. Everybody looks like babies to me, so I don't understand how that's attractive. Um Read true crime autobiographies. Yeah. I one time made the mistake of reading the transcripts for the Toy Box dude, and I do not recommend that. The dehumanization is so deep. Thinking you can treat people as things for your own sexual gratification and that you can do whatever. Yeah, I'm, I, porn is a problem. Uh, yeah. And I think too, we've normalized so much of it that many people are taking photos of themselves and sending them off. I've had that discussion with like my son because it's not just girls, it's boys too, where someone tricks them into sending a picture of things and then they feel like they're trapped by this person and blackmailed into doing stuff and then these kids take their lives. Um and so it's consuming people as a product and then you always need more, you know. It's never enough. I That's how I'm getting to a point where I'm recognizing unsafe people when it's never enough and they keep going. And there's like when you're with an abuser, that's what they're like. It doesn't matter if it's your parent, it doesn't matter if it's a partner, it doesn't matter if it's a friend. Like you can never do enough of the thing they say you should be doing. That they will think, oh, now you're a good person because it's not about that. It's about they can never be satisfied. Let's see. I skipped the chapters with those that deal with that. Oh, I touched on this in a video. No, did I? There are, okay, in sexual assault spaces specifically, they will come in there and they will start asking victims very detailed questions. And they'll seem supportive at first, but the giveaway every single time is that they're super graphic. And when yep, yep. And so I actually worked at a suicide hotline, and we would get these people calling in to gratify themselves, and they were making us, like, it was non-consensual. They're making us participate in their porn. Like, you can literally go anywhere to do that, but part of their self-gratification is that they force you into it. It's not something that you wanna be doing. You wouldn't have agreed to it. And we had this one guy who kept calling in with, like, he kept trying to talk about how he was so depressed because his roommate was tickling him, like, it was a weird tickle fetish, which I didn't even know about before I started this place. And I had to have a conversation. I was like, "What the heck is with this thing?" And they were like, "Oh, you gotta shut that, you gotta get anytime he calls in, shut it off, shut it down. You do not have to talk to this guy." But they would wait for a new person to come on the suicide crisis hotline wanting to help people, and then they would get them. And that goes back to that hunter, trap. Like, how are we getting our prey? And there are some people out there that they are looking actively for vulnerable people that they, or who are naive or who don't know better yet. And I'm just sad for all of us who were young and didn't know better and were trusting. And it's like, you don't want to go to the other end of things where you don't trust anybody. So I know I've been working on my discernment, but yeah, a core piece of my discernment has been, oh, nothing satisfies you, and you keep expecting everyone to make you feel a certain way. All right, now I'm suspicious. And that's been pretty accurate. Uh, but yeah, I at this point, anybody famous, I like I don't want to be this way, but I am going, what did you do to get there? Like, what did you have to do? Although I do wonder if someone like Gwyneth Paltrow, who was part of Hollywood, was in already had an established family, and her godfather or whatever was what's his face from Steven Spielberg. And so I wonder, like, someone like that probably, I hope, was never put in that situation. Surely it can't be everybody, but maybe it was. I don't know. Um, sh- she seems like someone who's never really been told no and has never been, like, put in a, I don't, you know what? I can't say that. I don't know. Um, Someone I think about a lot actually is Drew Barrymore. I hate to keep referencing, like, these older actresses, but I grew up essentially with Drew Barrymore, and I really related to a lot of what she went through, how people treated her, how she ended up in these clubs with these adults and they were all fine with it. And the fact that she was doing, like, ridiculous amounts of drugs or drinking. And then so now she seemed like she would, now an adult and had gotten through the being, yeah, yeah, you know, especially that stupid interview with, what's his face? He's so gross. Letterman. And so looking back on it, you're like, girl, you don't need to sexualize yourself. Like, you don't need to do any of this. But now she's got her show, and she's so uncomfortably overly physically intimate with people. And so I'm just like, I understand she never had a chance to be like a normal person with normal rules, and everyone didn't have good boundaries. And so you have it like situations like with her or with Justin Bieber, where they go on to do some, like, not okay things, but you know how they got there, and you saw how they became the person they became. Um, and so, like, yes, we still got to hold people accountable, but also knowing all this stuff is going on behind the scenes, it's like, oh man, did you have a chance? A summer camper at my camp. Yeah, I mean, is that a good thing? I hope she was okay with that. Sometimes that can go in a bad direction. Like when you look like somebody and then everyone makes that your personality and you're just like, "But I'm me. I'm an individual." Oh, I meant to ask a question. Okay, so there's like a lot of go to sleep type of videos on YouTube where someone will it's like sometimes it's an ASMR thing, sometimes it's just affirmation, sometimes it's just talking to you. And I wanted one for victims of abuse and I can't find any. So if anyone knows of a resource, I would love to know about it, but if not, I might have to make it, which that would be a very different thing for me, but I was thinking things along the lines that victims of abuse, especially as they're falling asleep, would love to hear, need to hear, things like, that you're a beautiful soul and you get to be in all the ways that you want to be in the world. Obviously phrased better. I'd have to write something. But I just was thinking of, who needs that more than victims of abuse because they're getting all of this terrible self-eroding stuff from the abusers. And it's sometimes hard to figure out, well, what do I say to myself? And so I wanted to find a resource where I could point people toward, but if I can't, then maybe like make it. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it reminds me of Britney Spears. We were all like, she should not be controlled. She should be allowed to be involved with social media. And then she started being on social media, and it was like, oh, baby girl. And so I still support her right to be on social media. But you definitely go, yeah, that it's uncomfy and sad. But you don't want to be sad about it because yeah, so I wasn't thinking subliminals because that is true. Some of them don't even tell you what's in them, but some of them do. But I was just thinking more like, okay, there's this lady, her name is Silka, and she does some of the ASMR stuff, which I'm no longer because I'm Christian, I don't do that anymore. But she also does some sleep stuff, and I love the sleep stuff. And I'm like, I want this, but for like victims of abuse, where we're saying like lovely things to victims of abuse that would not be subliminals. That would actually be like heard things. Yeah, yeah, the knives. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how this is all how I feel about my mom basically, where I'm like, I know how we got here and I'm not okay with it, but I'm also not going to be someone who persecutes you. And that's how I feel about Britney and Drew and Justin Bieber and really Amanda Bynes, like there's a lot. They get the kids in and that what's his name? Dan Foley or whatever, the guy, Schneider on the Disney Channel, who is basically like the Quentin Tarantino of getting children to do foot stuff in media. I'm appalled at how much we saw and just didn't clock that it was absurd and pornographic. The gentle soothing, like sweet. Yeah, I can't. Well, I wouldn't recommend like Bible verses to victims of abuse. That's like kind of a separate thing. But I'll look into the sleep training stuff because sometimes it's when your mind is most open and receptive to you're in the theta, I guess the theta brain or gamma, whatever the brain waves are, and it's highly suggestible. And it's one reason why I told my son, I was like, you can't just listen to anything when you fall asleep. You've got to be really intentional about that because it bypasses your cognition. Which for victims of abuse, if they had the right thing to listen to, I think would be very powerful. So I might have to figure out how to do that um, and see. I'll like workshop some ideas. Um, okay, so I think I'm going to end it here. It was really great to see you guys. Sorry it was so scattershot. I just rolled up and popped online. But it was really great to see you. And yes. Oh, see, religious abuse is hard for me because the religious abuse I went through was not Christian. So I can't really speak to that, although I'm aware of it. Yeah, no, thank you so much because you remembered the things that I didn't remember. So I'm super appreciative. Thank you so much. Anyway, you guys have a great weekend, and yeah, I'll talk to you next time. Alrighty. Bye.